Things are looking up, though. More and more people are starting to get vaccinated. Restrictions are starting to loosen up. Could that mean things are going to be normal for our schools come next fall? Let's bring in our good friend, Ken Gutman. He's the superintendent for the Walled Lake Consolidated School District. Always great having you with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ronnie. Tyler, great to see both of you, although I wish someone would drop off coffee here. You said that was a great spot, but now I need coffee.
Right. And I will say, too, I just have one of those little Keurigs. And when you have a really great cup of coffee, you're like, boy, am I wasting time on this, K-Pod stuff. So
I guess food service coffee is out for you then, huh?
Yeah, we don't want that.
All right, I have nothing to offer then.
I will say I didn't start drinking coffee until it was like when I was reporting for Fox 2, that early morning shift in the wintertime and you were freezing. It was like you needed coffee.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
You learned to drink it. Hey, Superintendent, how are things going? Starting to feel a little bit better about the fall?
Yeah, I guess somewhat normal, but fall I feel a lot better than I do currently. All indications are we'll be open 5 days a week in person, and we'll get back to even being more normal than we are now.
So what's so hard about this, though, while we have so much focus on the vaccination, people tend to forget that vaccination doesn't include small kids, and they are the ones that are in the classrooms.
Well, that's right. And you talked about going into Costco and how, you don't know, do you have a mask? Do you not wear a mask? I'm in my office right now. I don't have a mask on. But if I walk into one of our schools, I still have to wear a mask because the CDC and the HHS still expect that schools will have them. Not all of our students are eligible for a vaccine. So at this point, masks are still required in our schools. Will they be required in the fall? We don't know. We don't know what the summer will bring us. I think certainly a lot of people would be relieved if they were not required, if they were optional, but we still will continue to rely on the medical experts to tell us what we need to do.
How are things looking when it comes to remote learning as well as teaching? Is that going to continue, or will you have a hybrid situation?
Yeah, we won't do the hybrid again. We know the stress that placed on teachers and students. It was really hard to teach students who are in the classroom at the same time as teaching students who are at home. We are offering an option for a virtual classroom in the fall, K-12, but our response rate has been incredibly low. It seems that the majority of people would prefer to have their children in a face-to-face setting. So we're looking right now, we'll be analyzing over this week and next week, as to whether or not we can actually run a virtual option based on the low numbers. So it's interesting. It's really interesting. Now, the long-term view, though, Ronnie, let me just say, I think that we've learned this year that virtual learning does work for some. And so what does this mean for the future of education? Does it mean that we can start offering some evenings, some weekends, some online classes, particularly for maybe our juniors and seniors in high school? Maybe. Maybe we can get out of that 7 to 3 rut that we've been in for the last 100 years in public education, and we can open things up like we do on college campuses for some online learning opportunities at different times and on different days.
Yeah, that is really going to be interesting, the long-term impact this pandemic has had on the education system overall, because do you worry that you're also going to lose students in the district because maybe now they discovered they just want to be online?
Certainly that's in our thought that perhaps they would prefer a full online option. And if we're not able to offer one, will they go somewhere that does? Sure, it's possible. And I certainly applaud anyone who's doing what's best for their child. If virtual works better, I think that's wonderful. I do have a lot of confidence in our staff, though. And what we've seen from the response rate from our community has been, we want to get our kids back with your staff in our schools and back to what we offer here. So while I certainly worry about losing students, I'm happy if they find a place that's good for them.
And too, for me, school wasn't even so much about the learning per se, but it was really about the activities and the interaction. And, for so many kids, sports is why they go to school. Sports could be the motivator why they get the good grades. And when you take that piece of the component out, are you losing some of those kids or losing that interest as well?
Sure. I think for most students, having that opportunity to interact with other students, with teachers, it's the passing time in the hallway, it's the cafeteria, it's recess at the elementary level where friendships are made and broken, right? I mean, there's so much that socialization contributes to our learning, and I think it does work for most of our students.
So with that, superintendent, are you planning on summer school classes this year? And do they still call it summer school?
We do, yeah. It's school in the summer. We still call it summer school. Uh, so we are offering it, and we're looking at the response rates. It's been pretty good. We're still looking for some people to teach it. We're not fully staffed yet. We understand that there are a lot of teachers out there who really just want to go sit on a beach or not be connected to a device this summer.
And they've earned it.
They have earned every bit of, they've earned 2 summers worth this year. So, but yes, we are offering summer school again this year, and we expect to have a pretty decent enrollment.
So with that, when we're talking about summer school, would those be in person or virtual?
Those will be in person this year.
So
we may have a virtual option for some of it, but for a course or two. But no, primarily it's in person.
So kids are going to have to get dressed and make their way into the classroom.
They will have to do that. Yes, they have to be fully dressed.
So with that, over the past year, if we can kind of focus on the budget, I know that I believe your school district, your budgets are due, coming up here shortly?
June 30th.
It does look as if money is coming to some of the school districts, but where it comes from and how to budget is still kind of up in the air.
Yeah, there are 2 aspects to it. We've received a good amount of federal funding, and we're grateful for that. The difficulty is you can't balance your budget on one-time funding because you can't create legacy costs that you can't afford. And so we're really cautious with that. We're still awaiting our state funding. We saw that the school aid fund is up significantly over what was expected. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to get a good budget that allows us to go into next year ahead of the game. But we also have all of our contracts up right now. We want to make sure we treat our employees fairly. We want to make sure that we're putting the right resources into schools and into curriculum and into education. So there's still a lot to do. We're just hopeful we have a budget before we've asked the legislature to give us a budget by June 1st. That's next week, because we have to submit a balanced budget by June 30th. So we'll be cautiously optimistic.
Well, and it does seem, we've interviewed a couple of our state senators, and it seems like they are making a little bit more headway in that arena than what they were a few months ago. So hopefully the 2 sides can come together so that you can do the work that you need to do. One thing that did come out of the pandemic is we definitely saw the divide in learning when it came to things such as internet access, as well as computers. So when you're looking ahead to the budget going forward, will those services be a part of that budget to provide it for the students? Because not every home has the internet right now.
Yeah, that's a really good question. We were able to pivot and have devices available for any student who needed one, to provide hotspots where necessary. We at some point, we had a pickup here at our building, but we dropped off devices to homes. We did whatever it took. Yes, in terms of our budget for next year, we do expect we're collecting our Chromebooks back because the lease is up, but we will be purchasing new Chromebooks in case we need to pivot again, or in case we will see increased use of them over the next year or 2 years or 3 years. So we're building that in, not just because we may have to go back to virtual at some point. I hope not. But because we do see that there's more comfort with some virtual options. And for example, I will tell you, IEPs and conferences being online, parents seem to enjoy a lot of that. And certainly there are those who'd rather be in a room, and there are teachers who'd rather be in a room with parents and have those conversations. But there are more opportunities. So yes, we're preparing for those eventualities as well.
So when you're having these conversations as well, and you're looking at the budget, and let's say the parents and the teachers, they're seeing these headlines of trillions of dollars being set aside for our schools. How do you take that headline and put it into a reality conversation into which you were just addressing the legacy cost? And, they're saying, but you're getting all of this money.
Yeah, so we're not rich. And so, to dispel the headlines, the schools are not flush with cash, but we've done well with our federal funding. I think we just have to keep explaining it. And I think part of it is just this whole transparency of here's what we received and here's how we're spending it. And so, here's what it can be used for, because there are strings attached to a lot of the federal dollars. Our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Terry Less, did a presentation at our board meeting last week. I know a lot of people don't watch board meetings, but there is the availability to replay that. We're trying to be as transparent as possible with what those funds, how those funds are used. So it does dispel the notion, again, of us being flush. And you also have to look at the way it's distributed. A district like Detroit schools received $300 million, some number like that. Well, we receive a very small fraction of that. It's based on a number of factors. And so certainly we receive a decent share. But if you look at the equity and how the funds were distributed, I would argue we would have liked to have had more.
Most definitely. Ken Gutman with us here on the MegaCast, Superintendent for the Walled Lake Consolidated School District. We've talked about it before. I know that as the school year is winding down, more and more teachers are deciding to retire. Still a struggle to get enough staff for you and your team?
We've been really fortunate, and I'm nervous saying that, in that we did not have the same retirement rate we had last year. So that's a good thing. But certainly when you look at the future of education, when you see universities enrollment in education schools down by 2/3, and you see that 40-something% more teachers nationwide are retiring, or maybe it's statewide, retiring this year, obviously there's a need. And so we foresee a shortage going forward across the country. Teaching doesn't look as attractive. Teachers have been maligned for years and under a microscope. And quite frankly, I'm so proud of what our teachers accomplish. And I love that I did teach, and I love that most of my children are going into education to be teachers. We just need a lot more people to do it, because it would be a shame to not have the right people or enough people in our classrooms to provide what we know we can provide for our children.
Yeah, and if anything that has come out of this past year, parents have really come to realize how important teachers are to the growth of their kids. And so from that arena, you're hoping that it sparks an interest and a passion in some people to maybe, go into teaching, even if they're older, or do, maybe try it out, be a sub for a while.
Yeah, it's a wonderful profession, Ronnie. I love it. I know so many of our staff members love it. We are doing a teacher cadet program at high school level, so we are going to start introducing students to the teaching profession early on. And maybe that has an effect as well, that we grow our profession organically. I know other districts have something similar as well. Some districts do. And to ascertain that interest early on may be helpful.
That seems like it's a great program, a cadet program.
Absolutely. Learn a little bit more about teaching and what's involved early on. And, then maybe there's a decision throughout the university years to switch into it or start there.
So with that, again, we're talking with Ken Gutman. He's the superintendent for the Walled Lake Consolidated School District. And I will say, I have a friend that she's been subbing a lot, and she loves it and now wants to go into teaching full time. But you look at this, and I will say, in my situation, these kids are smarter than me. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? No, I'm not.
No, and what they're learning in fifth grade is not what we learned in fifth grade.
They grow up so quick.
They do. It's a challenge. I know that parents who had their children home during the quarantine know that what they're learning now is complicated, and it's not easy to teach.
It is not. And, with that too, if I can ask you, Superintendent, because we have seen a big shift recently to try to get students interested in some of the trades as well. Because a few years ago, everything shifted to that 4-year degree. Now it's starting to shift back because we need skilled trade employees in so many various industries. Is that part of the conversation on the high school level within your district? Yeah,
for sure. It's part of the conversation. Our job is not to prepare students for college. It's to prepare them for college, career, trades, military, whatever it takes. It's for, so yes, a part of that conversation is the trades. And I will tell you that when you look at, they're struggling to find employees in that sector. It's a reality. We've met with local businesses. I know along in Wixom, which is part of our district, there's a sector there. I've met with a number of employers who are really struggling to find employees. We try to make those connections. We also partner with Oakland schools. Oakland Schools has a technical center that actually is in our district. And that's a great opportunity for our students to be involved in trades as well. So it's not just part of the conversation, it's a part of what we do.
Hey, so many times you think about, these career fairs, or when you're in high school, having various speakers come in just so that you can try to expose the kids to as many different careers and paths out there. What's that been like in the pandemic? Has it been put on hold, or have you tried to do some of those virtually?
There's been minor success with that virtually. It's not the same as it's been in the past where we were able to bring people into our buildings. We generally hadn't had people into our buildings until recently. So that's a little bit of a struggle. But to your point, most students don't know what they want to do. Most people change majors, 2, 3 times. But we also know that they're not exposed to a number of careers. Part of our responsibility is to expose children to career opportunities, so they're able to make an informed decision later and not just go into the 1 or 2 careers that they had heard about.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. I feel like so many college students today, it's almost like they have to pick their path before they even enroll in college. I'm like, I started out in international business. How I ended up in, media communications, who knows? But, that's what college is about. It's, take a bunch of classes, figure out what you like, what you don't like, so that you don't end up in a career and spend so much money on something that you end up not liking. But, a lot of that just comes from exposure.
It does. It really does. And certainly, I don't know what the statistics are of how many times people change jobs or careers throughout their lifetime. I'm sure it's more than people actually change majors in college. So the more exposure you get early on, the more opportunities you get to survey courses or see what you like to do, the better served you'll be. And you'll save a little money too.
Exactly. College is expensive now.
It is. I have 2 in college right now, let me tell you.
You're like, I know. Ken Gutman with us. He's the superintendent for the Walled Lake School District. And with that, as I said, it's been a few weeks since we've talked to you. Anything else maybe you want to share that I didn't ask about?
We have a big ceremony coming up, a little commencement ceremony coming up at the beginning of June. We're really excited, a week from Sunday. Really excited about that. And we'll properly honor our seniors, let them cross the stage. It's not in our usual location. It is outdoors. It is in our district. But we'll do 3 commencement ceremonies in one day, as we typically do. And although it will be different, we know that our seniors have had a senior year unlike any other. And we look forward to recognizing their achievements and thanking them and sending them on their way to change majors and careers.
They will definitely enjoy that. Prom, is that happening this year?
Prom is happening. It's different. It's at our schools. It's outdoor. It'll be a take on prom. It'll be a little different than we've done in the past. And, maybe they'll look a little different next year. Maybe graduation looks a little bit different next year. You talk about those lessons learned during the pandemic. It gives us a chance to reflect and see what we want to do moving forward.
Just think about their 20-year reunion, the stories they are going to have.
They are. They have a story that we didn't have, that for 100 years, nobody's had a story like this. And so it will be interesting to hear the stories years from now, for sure.
Well, they are survivors. Superintendent, we so appreciate your time as always. And again, our gratitude and appreciation to you and your entire staff and team over there. It's been a crazy year, but fingers crossed, we're on the backside of this.
Well, I will also cross my fingers. And I will tell you, one of the benefits has been getting an opportunity to come talk to you and spend time here. And I really appreciate that opportunity. There are benefits that have come out of all of this. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome anytime, as long as we're still doing the show. We don't know.
All right. Okay. Well, I hope you are.